Dr. Vanderbroek takes us through the basics of a hip replacement. Coach Bo Westhoff with another functional movement assessment, the basics of a birthing team, when you should and shouldn't use a weight belt, an easy-to-make healthy appetizer, a tip or two, and a whole lot more. I'm Tanya Stroh, a certified personal trainer and contributing author. One thing I learned is that fitness is not just exercise. Healthy living is more than working out and eating well. It's about balance. Don't force exercises that are boring. Don't eat food you don't like. Don't let fear hold you back. Life is about living on your terms. So we put it all together on your and my Fitness RX. Dr. Vanderbroek, as an orthopedic surgeon, one of the surgeries you perform is the total hip replacement. Mm-hmm. Now you use what's called the anterior approach.
Correct.
So how is that different from just the traditional approach?
Sure. So the anterior approach is performed by about 15 to 20% of surgeons, joint surgeons in America. The traditional approach is the posterior approach, where the incision is based more posterior on the hip over the buttock, whereas the anterior approach is a more frontal approach to the hip replacement. It allows the patients to get up faster, require less pain medication, and have a lower dislocation rate and overall complication rate after surgery.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. Is it new technology?
It's not actually. It's been around for a very long time. The hip replacement itself isn't that old of a surgery. It was really popularized in the 50s and 60s.
That long ago. Did not know that.
Yeah, and it was this approach was available then, as it is now, but it's becoming more popular with advancing technology that we have now. Makes the surgery easier.
So walk me through what you do with
Sure,
our hip.
Sure. So hip replacement isn't a chopping out of the entire hip as one may think. It's more of a resurfacing procedure. To say the femur right here is the leg bone. The leg bone, correct, is a hollow structure. So the head of the femur, the thigh bone, is where the arthritis is. So you cut the arthritic portion off of a normal hip and the thigh bone is hollow. You create an envelope for the hip replacement that wedges into there to fit securely. These implants that I use are coated in a substance that allows the implant to grow into the bone and become one with the patient. Okay?
How long does it last?
These implants typically are projected to last 20 to 30 years because of the advanced technology and the bearing systems, meaning the head that's used now is made of ceramic, which is very hard, which doesn't allow for scratching, and the plastic portion that lines the cup is more advanced than the original technology.
How long does that surgery take?
The surgery takes between 1 and 2 hours, depending on how complex it is.
Wow, that doesn't seem like it's very long.
No, and it's rewarding for both the surgeon and the patient because they get a good recovery and pain relief relatively immediately after surgery.
Talk to me a little bit about the recovery process.
Sure. The surgery itself, like we said, takes about an hour to an hour and a half to complete. After surgery, patients are up walking later that day. The surgery itself is done under spinal anesthesia, where you don't feel anything from the belly button down, but you're awake.
So they're awake during that?
Well, you're sedated, so you're taking a nap, but it's not like original surgeries where you're intubated with a tube in your throat. That allows patients to get up, move quicker after surgery. They undergo physical therapy that day and the following morning, and most patients go home the following lunchtime. Okay, so they're only there.
That's so fast.
Yeah, so they're there less than 24 hours.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So now, do you do prehab or prehab exercises?
I typically do not do prehab exercises. I talk to my patients preoperatively and ensure that they understand what's going to happen with the surgery. If I felt like they would benefit from it, then I would consider it, but most patients don't.
They just...
Yeah, and this isn't like knee replacements where patients typically have a more difficult time with the recovery, hip replacements after surgery, they really do quite remarkably well.
That's unbelievable. So what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who is thinking about a hip replacement?
Sure, you really need to discuss what goes into a hip replacement with your surgeon and understand that there's no urgency to having a joint replacement, whether it be hip or knee. Don't feel like by delaying it you're risking missing the boat, because there's always going to be an option to replace that joint. So continue to manage it conservatively with anti-inflammatories, weight loss, physical therapy, and injections as long as you can. Your functionality is diminished that you need to progress with surgery.
So pain management.
Yeah. That's really what it is, a pain management surgery.
That was fascinating. Thank you so much, Dr. Vandenbroek.
Yeah.
The American Heart Association recommends 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. That's just about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. The problem is the average adult consumes 3,400 milligrams per day, or more than 2 times the recommended amount. When trying to limit your sodium, be aware of these foods: cold cuts or lunch meat, bread, pizza, soups, and poultry. Whenever possible, be sure to check the nutritional label. One other thing to keep in mind, though touted as healthy, sea salt and kosher salt contain the same amount of sodium as regular table salt. Next, what is a birthing team? But first, FMS. So Bo, we talked about FMS last year. So can you refresh our memories and briefly explain what the functional movement screens are?
So the functional movement screen from a general population standpoint is good because functional movements mimic everyday life. From an athlete standpoint, it helps us as a coach look for asymmetries and dysfunctions in movement patterns.
So what assessment are we going to do today?
We're going to do the hurdle step.
Okay. What are you looking for? Kind of explain the hurdle step. And
The
what's
hurdle
important about
step, what you're looking for simply is hip stability.
it. Okay. And in general population, that's important just to keep our core and everything strong.
Yeah, I mean, as we age, you get weaker. I mean, you hear a lot about elderly people fall and stuff, so being stable through your hip region is important.
And what about athletes?
Athletes, everything you comes from your hips, especially power sports, football and all that stuff. The hips are the most important things.
Okay, so what do we do with the, how do we do the assessment?
Well, we start the exercise by measuring a distance from like your patella tendon area down to your foot.
So you're measuring, where are you measuring from, Bo?
I'm going to find the patella tendon area, which is right here, and this is going to be where I'm going to mark my spot on the dowel to adjust this red line here.
Perfect.
After we do that, we're going to have you place the dowel on the back of your neck.
Okay.
Okay, and step up to the board with both feet touching. What we're going to look for is stability throughout the hip. So you want to take that foot up, over, and tap your heel to the ground, back over. If the foot touches here, the back of your leg sock is fine. You just don't want to touch it coming back this way.
All right. So stabilize through my core.
Yep.
Lift, up, whoops, that was a little wobbly.
Heel tap.
Heel tap.
Back around,
Back around.
finish. Let's do the other side.
Do the other side. Okay, so stabilize.
Back
And
over.
then back around. So you're also looking at my knees and my ankles?
I am. Mobility through the ankles, through the knees, and through the hips. You get 3 tries to do it. And if you remember what we talked about before, to get a 3, it has to be perfect. So I'm looking for like a
Right.
total stable hip area. A 2 would be, it'd have to be
Whoops.
modified. You can do it, but it's not perfect. And a 1 is pretty much you can't do it at all.
So one would be like all
Correct.
over the place. Okay, interesting though. So what's the significance about ankles? You don't kind of think of ankles being important.
And in any explosive movement, they are one of the most important things. You know, when we talk about, you know, the squatting movement and stuff, if you don't have ankle stability, it's going to be really hard to get into a deep squat.
That makes a lot of sense. So do you have a corrective exercise?
We are going to do 2 corrective exercises for the hurdle step.
Oh, great.
The first one we're going to do is a stride with an external hip rotation. All you simply need for this exercise is a bench or a table about mid-thigh. So I'm going to have you put your left leg up,
Right.
and we want This knee to be flexed and flat. This knee to be extended with your heel to the ground, straight as you can be.
Straight as I can be.
All we're simply going to do is hold it for 5 to 10 seconds on each side.
Wow, I can
3
feel that
sets.
stretch, Bo.
And if you want to intensify the exercise, we can bring this knee closer to this hip
Oh, and then still.
and do the same thing. Hold that for 5 to 10 seconds, 3 sets on each side.
Take a break and switch sides?
Yes.
Okay, what's the second one?
The second one is going to be a stride with a trunk rotation.
All right.
So let's go left leg again, foot flat here. This back knee extended. And we're going to do 2 versions of this. The first one is going to be a more basic one. So we can put your arms out and you're going to rotate into this left hip that way. And it's the same thing. We're going to hold it for 5 to 10 seconds on each side for 3 sets. If you want to intensify this exercises, we'll go hands right over and we're going to rotate the same way and hold that for 5 to 10 seconds.
Wow, that's rough. Bo, thank you so much.
And
Always a good time to be here with you at Ignite.
Labor and delivery is a time in a woman's life that is filled with so much excitement, but it's also so much anxiety. While here at Phoenixville Hospital, one of our 5 OB providers will be there to guide you through this time, to help you figure out what you need and when you need it. We have a team of anesthesiologists and nurses that provide you with care from beginning through delivery and also in your postpartum period. You should have someone there for you for your own personal support. Someone who knows what you need, who has access to your birth plan if you've created one, and someone who can help just hold your hand through some of the most exciting and scary times of your life. The anesthesiology team here covers 24 hours a day, and the nursing team is always there at your bedside, available to answer questions and sometimes even to just hold your hand. Don't forget to start with someone and finish your care with someone who is invested in taking good care of both you and your baby.
One of the most recognized and popular training tools in a weight training facility is the weightlifting belt. Unfortunately, it's also one of the most misunderstood tools in the gym. The purpose of the weight belt is to increase inner abdominal pressure when performing heavy lifts that are really intensive on the lower back. So exercises like squats and deadlifts. The belt doesn't need to be used for exercises like curls or exercises where you're sitting down or using machines. It just serves no purpose there. You want to make sure that you're training your abdominals to function on their own. If you're constantly using the crutch of a weight belt, you can actually make your core weaker, which is the opposite of what we want to do in the gym. Also, unless you're working at a moving company, there's no need for you to wear a belt in real life. So it's not a real thing that you're going to see with people walking around. So in the gym, it doesn't make sense to also use it since we're training to become functional. The other thing you'll see a lot is people wearing a belt that have a small front and a large back part. The size in the back actually has no bearing on the protection of your spine. What you would want to use, assuming you're somebody who lifts heavy in the squat and the deadlift, is a belt that's the same the same width all the way around. And what you're going to do when you put it on is not cinch it real tight, but take a deep breath, lock it in as tight as possible after you have your air in your lungs, and then push your belly into the belt. And this will provide stability for your spine when performing your heavy lifts.
Coming up, nothing like a really yummy veggie dip. Cindy, I love visiting your kitchen.
Oh,
So you do such fun things. So today you've taken a sausage dip and made it healthy. How'd you do that?
well, I figured you just need another protein, and the way to go was, I thought, with going with lentils. Some people might have gone with chickpeas, but lentils have a little bit woodier flavor, so...
Closer to the sausage.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
All right, fabulous.
you grab a spatula. I'm gonna let you do this
Okay.
one. All right.
What do we have in here?
We've got some cottage cheese right there.
And
okay.
gonna put in the lentils?
Put in the lentils.
These are pre-cooked?
They're pre-cooked. You cook your lentils for about 7 minutes in salted water. Start with a boil, then turn it down lower. We add in some red onion.
Red onions and cloves.
Fresh corn. And some tomatoes with green chilies. If you'd like to kick it up, and I always do, you know I like
Jalapenos?
that. Add some nice jalapenos into it. Now we've got 2 different versions of how we're going to present this, and one is just in a bowl with pita chips, and the other one is in a carved out cooked squash.
I love how you do that. That is such a clever idea.
So we're not going to waste anything, and what we're going to do is we're going to add in what I
I'm
carved
making a
out
mess.
as well, because that's okay. Just would you first spoon? We're just going to add it all in there together. Here, maybe
So keep mixing it.
yeah, here we go. Look,
That's
these are
better.
for- Okay. There we go. Now, it's best once this is all mixed up. The recipe calls for it that you throw it into the microwave, which helps
Melt that cream cheese.
melt the cream cheese.
Or cottage cheese.
Okay. Not cream cheese.
Cream cheese.
Yeah, and you can do that, but I find if you just, put a
Push it
little
on.
elbow grease in here and mix it up, and then let it stay in the refrigerator for a couple of hours and let it marinate a little bit. Also, what's good in here, I seem to be missing it, is cilantro.
Cilantro. Perfect.
Now, if you don't like cilantro, use parsley instead. So you've got the yellow, the red,
All the pretty colors.
all the pretty colors.
This is the spaghetti squash. Mm-hmm. That is perfect. And we didn't waste any food. One of Cindy's favorite tips. And
No, but if
things
somebody
not
wanted to
do.
dip in and eat, this one wasn't really carved out all the way, so you could still continue to eat the interior of that one.
And it's healthy. You're not putting it in a loaf of bread.
No,
Cindy,
no.
these are lovely.
Now here's the other version, and
there's the cilantro.
I used red lentils. There's 5 different versions of lentils.
Can I try one?
Yeah, go right ahead. Lentils are indigenous to Central and Western Asia. You'll find them used in, Italians use it in minestrone. It's used in soups and stews.
Cindy, this is delicious.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's an excellent source of vitamin B. It's just good for you. It's a great substitute for meat.
And it's delicious.
And
Thank you so much.
I don't think anybody would know the difference.
No. Ooh, it's got a kick. Thanks, Cindy.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Glad you like it.
We'll return with our exercise of the week and some closing thoughts. I love the concept of building a workout around functional movement. Because after all, what's exercise for if it doesn't make us stronger and healthier every day? Thanks so much, Bo. My thanks to Dr. Vanderbroek from Phoenixville Hospital Tower Health for keeping it simple when explaining a complicated process. Here's hoping you and I never need a hip replacement. Chef Cindy McClure did it again with a fabulous appetizer. And as always, Coach Eric Miller had a great fit tip. Till next time, I'm Tanya Stroh. Be fit, be healthy, be happy. Here's your exercise of the week. One of my favorites, a reverse lunge row.